All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are welcoming you into the inaugural episode of Major League Journeyman, the podcast most likely to be unprotected in the expansion draft here in November. We got some legends and some icons of the game here. I'm going to start with my former partner in crime in Alan Gordon. Really doesn't need much of an introduction and doesn't really have much of a bio to provide to you guys, but we're going to go with it anyway because he's a stud and he's my guy. And I know he's all of your guys and you're excited to see him. So he's number one. And then number two, we're adding to the group. We had what did we have? We had a pretty good setup going with the soup, and we had
you guys
Sal
blew
Zizzo.
It. Let's be honest.
We had Sal, and we had Nino, and we had a great platform, and Gordo's the worst. And, basically, he essentially said, you know what, Gargs,
he has commitment issues?
he said, reluctantly, I'm going to keep you on. But I've had a better offer to bring Dax into my team, and I can't quit you. And I was like, all right, man, listen, I love Dax too, and I get it. And now here we are sitting in Major League Journeyman, sitting with, I think, a trio that's going to be pretty solid here. But joining us is Dax McCarty, the newly minted 400 Major League start man, which is incredible stuff. Your bio speaks for itself, Dax. We, on behalf of Gordo and I, are very excited to be in this place. I can speak for Gordo because he's not that good at speaking. But
you don't talk good.
He ain't talking so good. Dude, but we're gonna crush it, and we're gonna talk through all different stuff, and we're gonna come at it weekly, right? We're doing this as long as Gordo shows up on time, which we can't guarantee.
He was. Let the record state he was 20 minutes late today for our first pod.
All right, let's not get into all the other things that you guys have done leading up to this first episode. Okay, let's just crap on Gordo.
Yeah,
I want to say,
Gordo. By the way, Gargs is using a new computer. He said the computer he used last week was old, and that's why it crapped out on him.
Oh, okay, yeah. He's got a lot of excuses. Trust me,
he sure does.
And
Journeymen don't make excuses.
That's right.
No, you're right. We just get cut, and
I
haven't gotten cut yet. So I'm still alive.
I am Garg's best agent he's ever had. I am dragging him around like he's never ever been dragged around, and he is a journeyman. This guy, I think he's on one of the top lists. We'll get into journeyman. I'm not sure if Dax is a journeyman. We'll talk about the qualities and what makes a journeyman. You are on the brink, my friend. You are on the brink.
And that's everyone has their own criteria. So we will talk about that. But what I want to know, Gordo, is what happened with the Gargs and Gordo show and the soup. You guys had something special.
We did. I miss Sal. I think we had a good platform, but Gargs is not being told. I'm not gonna agree with the guy a lot over this podcast, but that does have something to do with it. I was very inconsistent. I wasn't really watching soccer at the time. And
weren't you guys recording at like 11 p.m.?
We were recording at 11 p.m. We were having guests on, some current players that I had never heard of. And then I'm like supposed to ask them questions about soccer. So I have recommitted myself.
Who's Terry Henry? I never heard of this guy.
Yeah.
That's where Gordo's soccer acumen starts and finishes right there.
Yeah, I mean, it just wasn't right. It just wasn't right. And you don't know what you have until it's gone sometimes.
That's profound.
I had a moment of clarity, let's call it, and I missed being a part of the game. I really did. And so that, Gargs and I have a long relationship. I'm always going to bring him in to whatever I got going on.
I think you carrying Gargs along is why you have so many back issues these days.
Yeah, it is.
Careful, Dax, careful.
And this was totally out of the blue, Dax. You and I have kept up over the years. I've originated a few loans for you and your lovely wife.
Yeah, you have.
And
best rates in the country, everyone.
Yeah, and you had some things. You're gonna, you have some aspirations of getting into the media post soccer, which is going to be a great career for you. And you were going to start up your own podcast. And you were asking me, we were having that conversation. You were like, give me some of the ins and outs. And I was like, you know what? I do kind of miss that. And I think I missed on an opportunity. And then this light went off on the side of inside my head, which happens very often.
There's so much space going off right there next to your head.
Right here, which happens really often with some great ideas. And I was like, you know what? Why don't we just all get together? Because from my perspective, I had the same relationship with you when I was playing with you in Chicago as I did with Gargs in LA. I don't, it's probably something in me, but I just like to argue with people and get in debates. And our teammates found it really entertaining, and so mostly because my points were generally right and your guys' were generally wrong. But that's kind of how it started. I mean, from your perspective, Dax, where are you at with this?
Yeah, man. I have been thinking about doing something like this for a long time. I've seen it done, I think more so in other sports, how players have decided to just kind of, I think the media landscape in general is changing, right? Instead of, watching all these sports talk shows where you have some people who, may or may not have played the game, but they're on there just throwing out hot takes left and right. It was hard for me to decipher if these people were being genuine or not, right? Like if they were talking about something because they truly believed it in terms of an athlete and his performance, or if they were just saying it to generate clicks and content, right? And so for me, I looked at a guy that well, Gordo, right? You sent him a few DMs. I looked at JJ Redick. I don't know if he ever responded to your DMs.
Still hasn't responded. I'll keep poking the bear.
But JJ, he started his own podcast while he was still playing, and Draymond Green is kind of doing the same thing, right? And I think that it's a platform and a medium for them to go and just give all their thoughts on anything and everything, mainly sports related, mainly general thoughts on the game. And I thought I really wanted to do that while I was still playing because that is a unique perspective. I think there's a little gap in the American soccer landscape where there's not a lot of players doing that now. And I was talking to you about, I thought I'll reach out to Sasha Kljestan, maybe he'll join with me, but then he was big time and decided to, go and get a big time deal with Apple. And little fun fact for everyone out there, I actually tried to talk to Josie Altidore in preseason to do it. And Josie, he nibbled a little bit. I think he liked the idea, but Josie's a busy guy, so I don't think he had enough time. And finally, Gordo, you were kind of my mentor, my pod mentor, which I know Dan is kind of sitting there shaking his head like, why would anyone go to this guy for any advice on anything other than mortgage lending? And even then, Gordo needs someone to hold his hand through the mortgage lending stuff. But I truly valued your friendship, Gordo, when we were in Chicago. You were sleeping on my couch for like 3 months straight. You're a true gentleman through and through. You always did the dishes after you never cooked, but I appreciated that about you. And then this idea was born. You asked me if I wanted to join you and Gargs, and it was kind of a no-brainer, right? And then once the juices started flowing, we started exchanging ideas. I think the name was something that we had a lot of fun with. And Dan, I don't know if you appreciated how we kicked about the name, but we had some fun with that one.
I mean, just the genuine banter opening up those lines of communication was...
I think it's fair to say we've all been called journeymen throughout our career. And for me, I'll never forget when Sebi Salazar was interviewing me out at the MLS Media Marketing Tour. And he asked me after I'd been traded to Chicago, I think it was like my fourth team. And I was like 12 or 13 years into my career at that point. So he was like, do you consider yourself a journeyman? And I was like... I don't know, man. Like, what is your criteria? Do you consider Zlatan a journeyman? Is it the amount of teams you've played for? Is it the role you have on those teams?
You kind of start getting defensive right away, right? When somebody calls you a journeyman, for sure.
And then when I was thinking through the name of the podcast, I thought, why is that a bad thing, right? Like, why is being a journeyman a bad thing? We're going to take the name back. Like, let's take the name back. Let's commandeer it, turn it into something positive. Like, you want to be called a journeyman in your career because so many teams want to have you play for them. That is a good thing. It's not all the teams you played for wanted to get rid of you.
It's
maybe in Gordo's case, but for my case, every team wanted me.
Every team wanted you, which means that every other team was very desired. Every other team was ready to send you on your plane on the way out. Hey,
they were courting me.
This is Gordo, this is only our second podcast, so I don't know if we can consider ourselves journeyman podcast yet, but podcasters. But we're on our way. Hopefully, our second performance is going to be a little bit better than our first. Dude, I think you're spot on. I mean, yeah. I Googled journeyman a couple days ago, just as we're going through this process, and went and started to read some of the articles. And I pull up an article, and it's literally my picture on the top. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not sure how to take this. But I've also reflected on this stuff, and I'm like, you know what? When I think back on my career, I am so thankful and so grateful that I got to see the cities that I got to see. I got to be a part of the organizations that I got to be a part of, good, bad, ugly, warts and all the positives too. And I think about guys like Graham Zusi or Logan Paws in Chicago that have had these incredible careers with one organization. And I've always fancied myself as, when I was coming up, as in my goodness, that is the ideal. That is the epitome of a true professional. And now that my career is over, I would never go back and say I only want to play for one club. I just couldn't do it because it's been so positive. And granted, I didn't do the opposite. So maybe Logan or maybe Graham or some of these other guys that have had incredible stretches with one organization would say the opposite. But for me, I always felt wanted. So everywhere I went, similar to you, Dax, I was like, you know what? This is a fresh start. This is a clean opportunity for me to make the most of this next step and this next locker room, and to find new people that I align with and find new teammates and forge a new path. And I can't understand how, I guess, with roster constructions the way that they are and the amount of minutes and influence and games played and all these things that these supposed journeymen have, how that could be considered a negative, because I've played a significant role on every team I've played on. Dax, you've obviously been a captain on every team you've played on. Gordo, you have been relied on and trusted in the most crucial moments of the game. Obviously not minute 1 through 86, but minute 87 through 98, when teams need goals and need big time performers, Gordo's coming in and you know what you're going to get. So I think it's a badge of honor. It's a badge of honor for clubs to embrace you and be a part of it and be into, hey, hell yeah, we just got Dax. How in New York could you possibly get rid of Dax? Or same way, Nashville, like Chicago, you're going to get rid of your captain and hand him over to us so we can build our franchise around him? Thank you. Let me go up and drive up there, take the 5-hour drive and give you guys all a hug. It's just like, there's no way. There's no way possible.
So basically what you're saying, Guards, is that Graham Zusi, Logan Paws, Andrew Farrell, Connor Lade, this podcast is not for them.
No, I don't think
they're not welcome. They're not welcome here.
They might not be welcome.
These legacy guys are not welcome.
We're equal opportunity around here. They might be welcome on, but they're not going to be. They're not going to be celebrated while they're on. I can tell you that.
They will be. We're not celebrating them.
No. I don't. Yeah, it's too much. It is a place though where I think this is for us to celebrate the word, celebrate the group, because it really extends all over the place. And that's one of the things I want to start with you, Dax, because you did celebrate 400 Major League Soccer starts this past weekend, which is an incredible achievement. Gordo, true to Gordo fashion, text me.
I sent him a screenshot and it had this image. It says Dax 400 starts, and I text him. I go, "Is this real?" I'm like,
Gordo, do you even have 30 starts?
I'm like, no, probably not. Probably not.
For the people that might be either listening or if you're going to watch us on YouTube, my studio is my 4th bedroom, and behind me, every single week, we're going to have jerseys of excellent journeymen that I've traded with. And Gordo gets the honor, along with my good friend Breck Shea, to unbelievable journeymen. I would say probably top 10, 15 in league history easily. They will go on this wall right here as almost a shrine to our friendship and to you being an absolutely integral part in the journeyman name. So I appreciate you guys. Me and Dan never actually got to trade jerseys because I think our friendship just got a little bit closer when he got pretty inebriated at a house party I had back when
we
when
just
we all had a party
kicked each other and then got drunk.
Yeah. Exactly.
I want to start with you, Dax. I do. I want to, because I think setting some parameters here for what a journeyman is
Sure.
important. And you going through some of your history, going through some of your bio, you played in Dallas, right? Start in Dallas. You get unprotected after the 2010, which is what a miserable feeling that is, huh? Being unprotected on the expansion list. That doesn't feel great. Picked up in Portland and sent immediately to DC. Were you aware of that, by the way? Did you know that was happening?
Yeah, I knew that was happening. Had a nice little phone call with Benny Olsen before he before he made the trade.
Okay,
yeah.
So did you talk to Portland, or was it direct routed through DC?
Never talked to Portland. Never talked to Portland once. Actually, this is a pretty good story. We were in MLS Cup final, 2010 MLS Cup final, FC Dallas against Colorado Rapids. And we had just lost an excruciating game in the 2010 final. It was the last MLS Cup that I believe was played in a neutral site. So it was in Toronto. It was miserable. The weather was horrific. It was like 25 degrees outside.
I was at that game. I was playing in
Toronto back then.
I was playing in Toronto that season, 2010.
So you guys know how miserable it was. The weather was terrible. It was two teams that, like, our team was really good in 2010. Colorado, I'm not going to disparage them. They did what they needed to do, but
did Baji score the winner?
Dude, you don't remember this? It was
towards ACL, right?
It was Kanji. It was 1-1.
Kanji, that's
to extra time.
Yes.
Kanji.
It went to extra time, and it's probably the most infamous own goal in MLS history. He just kicked the ball, crossed it. It hit off George John's thigh and went straight into the top corner.
That's right.
And that was how we lost. So we're on the plane the next morning heading back to Dallas, and we are just drinking heavily. Like, we get back and they bring us into the locker room and they're like, all right, guys, this was the Schellas Henman era. And they're like, all right, guys, like, obviously, like, celebrate a great season. That's all well and good. Here's the unprotected list right here, right now. We're all sitting in the locker room. A few of us had a little bit too much to drink, and we're just sitting there. They're going off who's being protected and who's being unprotected. And when I heard I was being unprotected, it was a little bit of a surreal moment, right? Because you're sitting there thinking, wow, this really could be my last moment in time as an FC Dallas player in this locker room, because I had assumed I'd had a good season. I had assumed I was a pretty good candidate to be picked up. And so I think being a journeyman, like, being unprotected for an expansion draft, you automatically qualify as journeyman status right there in and of itself. But I had a good conversation with Benny Olsen. He was just becoming the full-time coach there, and he said they were going to trade for me, and would I be happy with that? And I said, absolutely. And then they said, we're going to build the team, DC United, around you, Chris Pontius, Andy Nahar, Bill Hamid, a bunch of young players, youth. You're going to bring us back to the glory days.
Those are some good names.
And then 5 months later, I got traded to New York Red Bulls for a 30-year-old Dero. So that was fun. That was a fun conversation I had with Ben. But yeah, man, no, it's been quite the roller coaster.
So the captain in DC, you get traded to New York. The captain in New York, you get traded to Chicago. The captain in Chicago, you get traded to Nashville. This is kind of like a red table talk. I feel like Will Smith's gonna pop out somewhere and slap me in the face. Are you a journeyman? Do you feel like you classify in the journeyman status?
Listen, for my criteria of what I consider a journeyman, and since we are now wearing it as a badge of honor, yes, I do consider myself a journeyman. I think that it's a term that is thrown out, like we talked about, in like sort of a negative way. But I don't look at it as a negative. Like I said before, I think it's an expression of interest from other parties in your services. And I kind of look at it like, you're good enough to always be on the field. You're good enough to always have a prominent role in a team, but you're not quite good enough where, you aren't tradable. That's reserved for a very special type of player and personality. And for me, it was always difficult when I did get traded But I always, like you guys said before, I always looked at it as a new moment in my life, a new opportunity to prove myself wrong, or to prove the team that just traded me wrong. And that was how I looked at it. So I would say, yeah, man. I would consider
the definition says an athlete who is technically competent but unable to excel. So do you think
I don't subscribe to that notion.
So do you not? So you think you've excelled, right? Or do you think it's just because the 6 is such a boring player that you can be exposed? And
hey,
you're not
the
a
6
superstar?
Is a boring player, but the most integral part of a team. You know
1,000%. I agree with you, but it is a very thankless job at times, right?
If you guys would have asked me this question even 2 years ago, I would have said, no, I'm not a journeyman. I wouldn't have considered that.
And is that before you came to Nashville or
yes.
after?
Yes.
Okay. So
in Chicago, the term a little bit more.
In Chicago, you're not a journeyman. You moved from Chicago to Nashville.
Now he is
5th team.
Yeah.
So is it?
I think the cutoff. I think there's a cutoff here with teams played for, and it's right around that 4 or 5 team mark.
Gordo, which side of the fence? Which side of the fence you sitting on, Gordo? Is it 4 or 5?
I think 4. It depends on the player. I think 4 you can accept. Yeah, 4, but it's like it's got to be a special exception because 4 you can. Let's say you have a 20-year career. Divide that
I agree with that.
By 4, I don't know what that is, but it seems like a long stint in each. We'll get
Statman Jack on that ASAP.
Hey guys, Statman Jack checking in here. 20 divided by 4 is 5.
Quick maths.
Right, 5 years at a club is a long time. You know,
I agree, Gordo. I agree. I think it's years played, longevity, how long your professional career lasts. I think it's what is your role within that organization, within that team. Like, what role do you fill throughout your career?
Yeah, to your point, I mean, I think it's not black and white. I mean, you have to get accepted into the club. I mean, you don't just get a fair pass. I mean, if you got 6 or 7 teams, you are a journeyman. You can't say anything about it. I don't care how long you're playing.
Let me ask you guys a question. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, journeyman?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
I would agree.
So threw this out on Twitter and said, greatest MLS journeyman of all time, right? So we got a bunch of good responses, a bunch of personalities that made me laugh in a lot of ways, and reminded me of countless amounts of stories. But one of the ones that stuck out, actually, Jason Segini from MLS, who does their broadcasting stuff and some of their communications. He writes back and says, D-Row doesn't qualify. D-Row is too successful to qualify as a journeyman, which goes back to, I think, it's a negative connotation because why would success determine what the journeyman status is? So does success, in your mind, disqualify you from being a journeyman?
No, not at all. I'm taken back. I think the part of the point of this podcast and why we named it this is because it's got such a negative connotation. I want to take that back.
Yes, Gordo. So I think power to the journeyman.
There's a negative journeyman and there's a positive, period. Okay, and I want to. There are guys that are journeymen that win championships, and people pull them from team to team because they add value. Okay, I believe that Dax is that way. To your point, I'm not sure about you, Gargs. I know that teams meant for me to be a positive thing. It didn't always work out, but they wanted me to score late goals and do that. A lot of the times I would deliver, right? But it's adding value to a team that is going to win. Okay, I don't care. I think it's negative if you're bouncing around the lowest clubs and you're a bottom dollar player and they need a roster spot to fill and you're average, right? Average to below average, and you're gonna have a.
That's not a journeyman. That's a bum. Like, you're a bum. That's pretty much it.
They're still playing. Right? But yeah, maybe they're not. Maybe. Okay. So I can take those players out because I was considering everybody that had bounced around 6 or more times. I was considering them a journeyman. So maybe not.
Yeah.
So they get something else. They're a bum.
Yeah, you're a bum, dude. Listen, if you're not, I think what Dax was saying, you're talking about you have to be able to stay in an organization, right? And you have to be able to participate and play a role. I think playing a role is a big piece of this. You're winning championships, that's awesome. But if you're playing a role and you are called upon, you're brought in, and for whatever reason, we all know there are so many variables that lead to the success of you as a player, or from dropping that you can't qualify it. You can't just dump it all in a bucket and say, yeah, these are the journeymen. It doesn't work like that.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's on a player-to-player basis.
So let's get a quick word from our sponsor, Dax. Tell us about the referees. What's going on over there?
Hey, soccer fans, are you tired of inconsistent officiating ruining the beautiful game you love? Fair Whistle is here to help. Our sport tech platform provides leagues with the tools to collect ratings and competition data on officials, coaches, and spectators. By measuring and creating healthy sporting communities, Fair Whistle is helping to develop world-class officials for all sports, from youth to pro. Join top leagues like the MLS, NWSL, and USL in promoting fair play and ensuring the integrity of the game. Visit fairwhistle.com to learn more.
Major referee shortage in youth soccer. Just gonna say, if I gotta ref another youth soccer game,
dude, I'm reffing games out here too. But this is all because of you, Gordo, because you won't leave your 7-year-old kids.
Gordo,
alone.
You're giving back to the game. That's what you do.
That's right.
I think we should go into our Mount Rushmores. Gordo, Mount Rushmore has 4 people on it.
Okay, that was going to be part of my comedy act, but that's fine. Okay. I was going to give you 3 and say that's it.
All right,
we can still go there. All right, here we go. All right, so we have the parameters, right? Pay does not disqualify you from being a journeyman. Success does not disqualify you from being a journeyman. Integral role, place on the team, and number of teams, 4 or 5. Okay, so Gordo, top 4, Mount Rushmore of journeymen in Major League Soccer. Who you got?
I've literally killed it. I guarantee mine is the sexiest Mount Rushmore. I'm about to slay this Mount Rushmore. By the way, I'm going out with a guy that I started with, Alejandro Moreno.
Oh,
ooh la la!
Oh.
You've heard of that guy before?
I hate him.
One of the most hated guys in the league.
It's just his voice.
Do you have to be liked to be a journeyman?
No, it's probably more likely scenario that you are hated.
This guy won. Okay, we're bringing back, as we talked about, I'm bringing back the successful journeyman, right? And I guess you have to be. That's how we broke it down. So Alejandro, 3 supporter shields, 3 MLS Cup championships, 3 different teams. Okay, that's important. Okay, so all those supporter shields and the MLS Cup winner is from a different team. LA, Houston, and Columbus. He really did it everywhere. And this is a guy that was never a superstar. Never. Okay. He was hated by the players. I don't know how the fans thought about him, but he was just one of those guys that never did anything special, but he really had an effect on the game.
He was a better, more successful version of you.
Yes, exactly. I mean, he threw his body around. He dove a lot, but he threw his body around, and he made an effect on the game for a positive way for his team. Okay, so
how many total teams for Moreno?
He's got 6.
Okay.
L.A., San Jose, Houston, and there's another guy that has the same move. San Jose to Houston is kind of like
Does that count as a move?
It does, yeah. That's what I was going to ask. However, it's 5 or 6. Okay, it does count as a move, but it's not like he got traded or anything, so maybe not.
It doesn't count
Houston,
as a move.
Right? He goes from San Jose to Houston. Columbus, obviously playing with Scaleto and that team. Chad Marshall, they were good.
They were good.
Robbie Rogers. Who was the other guy on the wing? That guy that just Gavin.
Eddie Gavin.
Running around forever, right?
And then awesome.
Cunningham up top.
Yep.
Cunningham could be a nice journeyman. Philly, and then Chivas. Everybody ends at Chivas and then ended their career, it seems like.
You got out.
And Chivas ends.
Gordo, you got out of Chivas.
I did get out of Chivas, barely. All right, moving on. My second guy, Ezra Hendrickson.
Wow.
Okay, this guy, he was a little bit before my time. I played in I caught him on the back half of his career, but this is another guy. 3 cups, 3 different teams. He went Metro Stars, Galaxy, Burn. I love these old names. DC Chivas. He made it out and went to Columbus, and he was part of that group with Alejandro Moreno. And he won a total of 8 trophies. I mean, this guy is just a winner, right? So he's going everywhere. And some of those teams, he didn't play, I mean, towards the back half, he didn't play a huge role on the field, but I'm sure, him being a coach now, I'm sure he added a lot in the locker room, and I think that's a huge part of a journeyman. Listen, if you are a military brat, you know how to make friends. Okay, and journeymen become military brats. We move around a lot, and we walk into every locker room pretty comfortable. We're like, yep, this is going to be home for a little bit. Sit down at your seat and start talking to that guy, right? Your first trade is always like, shit, like what is going to happen? I remember the first time I got traded, I broke Con. You remember that guy Con from Toronto? Hey, Adrian Con.
Yeah, Adrian. He was like one of the most beautiful humans you've ever seen.
He was
in your
a
life.
model, and I broke his nose in the last game of the year before, and then got traded, and I sat next to him.
I was in Toronto when you got traded there. That's right.
I thought he was going to kill me. I thought we were going to fight in the first practice. So trades can go a lot of different ways. Anyway, let me move on. I'm going De Rosario. Okay, you brought him up earlier. He's on my Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
This guy, it speaks for himself, but he's got 4 championships as well. It's another San Jose Houston thing, but he did bounce around, and he was a major player. Think what you want of him. He was a major player on every team that he played for, right? He was scoring a ton of goals. He was just that guy. And lastly, he doesn't fit into any of the winning spots that I just mentioned.
Any of your early parameters.
He's totally going away from his own criteria.
That's right. Hey, and we agreed. Are we not allowed to touch Kai Kamara? We haven't given him his praise.
No, listen.
You can touch Kai Kamara. He's the president and CEO of the Journeyman.
He is.
Listen, Kai Kamara is getting the trophy named after him. It's the Kai Kamara trophy. He has it. There's no one touching that.
All right, so he's going on my Mount Rushmore. He scores goals everywhere he's been. I don't think he's won anywhere. So there is something.
So you're going away from your criteria.
I'm going away from that a little bit, but he's scoring goals. I mean, he's third in the race right now, right? He's about to pass Landon. Yep. That's going to wrap up my 4. What do you guys got?
Yeah, I like your Mount Rushmore, Gordo. A lot of players that make a lot of sense. I don't necessarily agree with you that a journeyman has to be like this hyper successful player.
That's because you never won a championship.
Exactly. Yet. That's why I'm not going to agree with you. All right?
Exactly.
My journeyman status is a guy that's bounced around a lot, has played for a lot of teams, but someone who's always provided value to that team in one way, shape, or form. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily mean that they won multiple championships, which 3 of your Mount Rushmore journeymen did, and then you just decided to change it up at the last minute and say, all right, I'm going to throw this guy who's never won anything in there. But that's fair enough.
Agreed with me.
I did agree with you, but I don't necessarily agree with your journeyman status. All right, here we go. My Mount Rushmore. Number 1, my old teammate Dominic Oduro.
Oh yeah,
had to happen. Someone on Twitter suggested
layup central, dude. I love
it.
Dom.
It is. But you know what? Dom was an absolutely fantastic locker room guy. He scored goals. He contributed to every team he went to. He changed addresses quite often. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams.
No, he also gave himself nicknames, which is an underrated quality.
He also had the best marketing ploy a player has ever had in MLS history. This dude loved pizza. When he was in Columbus, he shaved a pizza into the side of his head. And every time he scored goals, I think he got free pizza. I forgot where it was from. It was Domino's or Papa John's.
I think it was Papa John's. Didn't he have a deal with Papa John's?
Statman Jack can help us out with that later. But anyways, brilliant marketing campaign. Well done. Dom Oduro's on my Mount Rushmore. Number 2, another former teammate of mine, Kenny Cooper. Legitimately the nicest human being you will ever meet in your entire life.
He really
played for plenty of teams.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Goals. How many teams did he play for?
Scored goals everywhere he went, and I'll tell you.
He only played for 4 teams.
Kenny Cooper?
He went back. I think he did a double.
All right, Gordo.
So, look at Gordo throwing out stats.
Gordo,
wow, you did
about
homework,
to make you look
Gordo?
silly right now. Silly. You're about to look stupid right now. Gordo, I think that you're wrong. This dude played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Name them. No, he didn't.
9, 10 teams. 10.
No, dude.
You want me to name them?
Name them.
You want me to name them?
Name them.
MLS.
Started his career at Man United. Bam.
Doesn't count. MLS. We're talking MLS.
We're not talking. He
Right,
played for
fine,
plenty of MLS
fine.
teams.
He played for 4 MLS teams.
No, he didn't. This dude. All right. If you want to go just MLS teams, that's one thing. I'm going total career.
All right,
okay?
that's fine. That's fine.
So fine. This dude played for Man United. Went on loan. Academica Cumbria. I can't even pronounce it. Don't even know where it is. Okay. Oldham Athletic. And then he came back to Dallas. Went from Dallas to 1860 Munich. Went on loan to Plymouth Argyle. Excellent team to go on loan to, by the way. Amazing nomadic situation experience.
Is it? Where is it?
Came back, Plymouth Argyle, lower leagues of England. Amazing. Then he came back, Portland Timbers, New York Red Bulls, back to FC Dallas, Seattle Sounders, Montreal Impact. So
okay.
if you want to do just MLS teams,
That's
that's
six.
All right. I didn't know he went to Montreal.
So
Didn't
I know I'm gonna make. I know I made you look silly. I apologize. Okay, but we're not just. We're talking about a guy who spent the majority of his career in MLS. Excellent locker room guy. Excellent teammate. Scored goals everywhere he went. Next on my list, a guy that's gonna fly under the radar, but this is one of the best soccer players that I've ever played with. One of the most underrated guys that no one talks about. Eric Alexander. Absolutely incredible player. Don't know if you guys remember how he played.
Oh, yeah, dude. He was smooth.
This dude was
nice.
one of the silkiest, smoothest dribblers and passers of the ball that I ever played with.
Super
underrated. The fact that an MLS team wasn't able to take a guy as talented as this and make him stick on a team for longer than 4 or 5 years, it blows my mind.
Where did you play with him? Dallas?
I played with him in Dallas and at New York Red Bulls. Mike Petke, if we eventually get Mike on this, was the biggest Eric Alexander fan you'll ever meet, and for good reason.
Dude, he was easy to be a fan of. I never played with him, but he was always a guy that you would watch, and it always looked so effortless. Like, how is he
really
so
good with
smooth?
both feet, right?
So good.
Great with both feet. He was a tremendous teammate. One of my favorite guys I ever played with. That's number 3.
Didn't he have a long stint in Houston?
I don't think he had a long stint in Houston, but he had a stint in Houston. Yes, he was in Houston for 3 years, 16 to 18.
Yeah.
All right, and to round out my list, a guy that I didn't play with, but a guy that I was a huge fan of, and I couldn't round out my list without having a redhead on that list. None other than Jeff Laurentowicz, synonymous with MLS success. That's my winner in Gordo's criteria right here. The guy won everywhere he went. I think he won 2 MLS Cups. Just a tremendous person. Guy was, I think, the president of the Players Association at one point, which if that doesn't scream journeyman, I don't know what does. So that's Jeff Laurentowicz rounding out my list. There are my 4.
I like
Bam.
that. Where did he win? Atlanta and where?
He won it with Atlanta and Colorado.
In 2010 v. Dax.
That's right.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, Gargs,
We'll
where you
talk
at?
about Bruno.
I had Odoro on my honorable mention, by the way.
If anybody, if you spent any time on the executive council for the Players Union, you're guaranteed to play for at least five
Yes.
clubs.
Yes.
No problem.
All right, Gargs, where you at?
You guys already ran through all of my list. So basically, I'm just going to throw some names out here for you because I think I want to touch on the honorable mentions. A couple guys that I think are these unsung heroes that don't get enough love. Number 1 is a guy that I played with in Toronto that I think is an excellent journeyman in Chad Barrett. He was so much fun to play with, an absolute meathead, but was like just a gem of a human. And you could only help to root for him. Like, the guy scored goals. He was intense. He also couldn't hit the broadside of a barn from time to time. And he would go through these scoring droughts and he would beat himself up so bad. But his passion for the team and like a genuine teammate in the locker room, getting the guys together, like you could tell that he was always team first mentality, which I loved. I caught him in Toronto and then played against him. He was in Seattle when we used to whip him with the Galaxy. So he's on my honorable mention. Rodney Wallace is a guy that I thought deserved some love. I don't know if he won anywhere, but I felt like
Portland Timbers.
did he win? He won in Portland. You're right.
He won it with Portland, and you're also bringing it around back to me because actually, little fun fact for you, Dan. When I got traded from Portland to DC United, when I never played for Portland in general, guess who went back to Portland in return for me?
Rod did.
Rodney Wallace.
Yep.
Did he win during the COVID year?
No, what do you mean?
No, he won. He beat
Rodney retired before the COVID
dude.
year.
Did he?
That was
He beat
the
Columbus
COVID
in Columbus,
bubble
right?
Tournament, right?
That's Gordo, not knowing soccer.
Dude, Portland. He was on that Portland team that
COVID, dude.
won
They
in
won in
Columbus.
2015, I think.
In Columbus, when Steve Clark tried to dribble him, didn't he try and dribble
right.
Rodney Wallace?
No, that was Valeri, but Rodney scored in MLS Cup.
Rodney scored in that game. So he was a guy that would always play left back, sometimes left wing, and I always lined up against him. Always knew you're in for 90 plus minutes with Rod because he got up and down and he was smooth. He had a dirty left foot. He cut inside. He's a journeyman for me that I always enjoyed playing against. You mentioned a number of my guys. Jeff Cunningham is a guy that doesn't get enough love. So high up the goal scoring sheets and was everywhere.
On Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Fantastic journeyman. Good shout.
Phenomenal goal scorer too. Like he put the ball in the back of the net and worked at his craft relentlessly. Like he was a guy when I first came into the league in Colorado was always after every session hitting 1,000 balls and from every angle. The only other guy I really saw work at it that much was Wando. Wando was in San Jose. He was
1,000%.
special to that too. And
How
one
about
more.
Atiba Harris?
Atiba.
Oh, great guy.
That's
Great
a journeyman.
Great journeyman.
That guy split people's heads open in every jersey.
He's got so many fragments of shin bones still stuck in the bottom of his spikes. He would
Absolutely. That guy had the sharpest elbows in the history of
kill
the league.
people. He would kill people. Dude, I remember.
Even in practice, he'd be like, sorry, didn't mean to.
But honestly, nicest human being of all time,
He
along
is.
with Kenny Cooper off the
Great
field.
dude. Great dude.
The other one?
Okay, so I think my Mount Rushmore just is fantastic for my criteria. Gordo, for some
I like
reason,
yours.
thinks a journeyman has to win 8 MLS Cups each, which is insane to me.
I like yours. Hey, I don't know if this is public news yet. I want to throw. This is the last name I'll throw out.
Gordo, this is a recorded line.
Is your teammate CJ Sapong getting traded? Is that public?
He's getting traded.
Yes, Gordo, it's public. That's been public for about 7 hours now.
Schefter breaking news on a non-live
He's
podcast.
He's a journeyman.
Breaking
Is he
news that
not?
already occurred 10 hours ago.
Hey, he's a journeyman, right?
CJ's a journeyman for sure, and honestly, great locker room guy. Thank you for bringing that up, Gordo. Nice, easy segment transition into me thanking CJ for being such a great teammate and such a great servant to Nashville SC. Scored a lot of goals for us. He was, I think, a huge reason why Hani Mukhtar has had such great success the last 2 years.
Dirty work.
Don't discount the work that CJ did for the team.
Dude.
That's something that I think a journeyman, that's a key component, is that they are selfless. That is a big, for me, a big part of a good teammate, a good journeyman, a guy that's going to bring the locker room up and make it better.
1,000%.
So cheers to CJ. Wish you all the best in Toronto, brother.
Dude, he was a
We
handful.
should start
CJ's
cheering
For
always.
fallen journeyman.
We should cheers. That's excellent.
All right, guys, we're finishing up here. Our first inaugural podcast with Major League Journeyman. Smash that like button, share it, do whatever you guys do with it on social media. Subscribe. Yeah, follow us.
That's a good word.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I feel like Gordo right now. But hey, listen, Gordo's Rolodex has gotten us a special guest next week. So get your Das Boot ready. Bring a pretzel. And
We're gonna have some fun.
bring a couple extra pairs of socks because you may need them. We'll check you out next week.